Today I'm going to talk a little bit about routers and my journey in using routers over the last 5 years. Routers are one of the most versatile yet intimidating tools in the shop, and they remain intimidating for me. It's something that spins at very high RPMs. You hear horror stories about people cutting themselves on them, but the reality is that they are so versatile. They can do so many different things, and learning to respect the router, and if you have the right accessories around them, you can get a lot of great use out of them. So here we have the Bosch 1617 EVS K, I think, for kit. So this came with the plunge base that you see here, as well as the fixed base that I have routed or mounted in a router table that I'll be showing you in a moment. This is the second time that I've had this router. I actually sold the one before it, not because there was anything wrong with it, but because I was just getting a little intimidated by routers and just couldn't build up my comfort level to actually use them on a regular basis. And instead I had moved to a trim router to do basically everything that I needed. So I recently re-added this to my collection, and definitely looking forward to it. I'd say 2021 is going to be the year of the router for me. And I'm going to give you a tour of some of the accessories that I have for this. And then the DeWalt DCW600. So I've already done a bit of a review on this, as well as the plunge base that can accompany it. And it's fantastic. Going cordless on this was a great idea for me. You don't have to go DeWalt, go with whatever battery brand that you have. And yeah, just absolutely love this guy. This has been my workhorse the last couple of years. It does only work with 1/4 inch bits. So I've had a lot of 1/2 inch bits sitting there unused, but really a great router. So you buy your router and you think you're ready to go, you go buy a bit. You may be ready to go, but the world of accessories has just opened up. So let's take a look at some of those accessories. So one of the first accessories that people will first buy for their router is a router bit. And whether it's a simple round over, whether it's a 45 degree, whether it's a straight bit, flush trim bit, rabbiting bit, dovetail bits, there are so many different ones to choose from. A lot of us will start with a kit, and I definitely recommend starting with a kit, but not one of those ones that comes with 50 or 60 different router bits, because they're all gonna be relatively low quality. But to start with a nice set like this, I think this is from MLCS, that's known to be a very good quality North American brand, and comes with a nice variety of bits. These are all 1/2 inch, but usually you can buy the set with 1/4 inch as well. And yeah, so this was the first kit that I bought. Then I started to buy some individual specialist bits over time. Straight bits are one of the most used for me, whether it's cutting dados or rabbets or other things. It can be a very flexible bit. And also buying this organizer for bits. I'm probably going to take these ones out and put them in there to make it a little more organized. But this is my router drawer, so I got a lot of manuals. I usually store my DeWalt cordless one in here as well, but your router addiction and accessory really starts with bits. So get yourself a nice little set of bits to see what you want. And then as you need specialist bits, buy those over time. I've had really good luck. And I think that all the red ones here are these Freud bits. They're not super expensive. They're available at a lot of home centers and generally hold up pretty well. And then at trade shows, you'll see some of those other brands that offer some very inexpensive bits. And I've had really good success overall. So yeah, so that's the world of bits. Now let's get to some of the other accessories. So one of the first accessories that a lot of people buy for their router, especially for one of the larger routers, like the 16 EVS PK or EVSK, is an edge guide. And this is very flexible and great for running along the edges of boards. You can cut dados, you can do a lot of things with the edge guide. And for me, the Bosch one wasn't too expensive. I think this was maybe $40 Canadian. And let's just flip it over. So again, this is the second one that I've owned. I did have one that I sold when I got out of the big router game a couple of years ago, but I generally really liked it, and it was a well-built edge guide that I use fairly often. So let's take a quick look at this. So the edge guide mounts using these rods to the router here. Try to do this one-handed. Let's move this guy out. So mounts really easily. So you basically slide this in, you can lock it, and then you can run this along the edge of a lot of boards. And it does have a fine adjust here, so you can really dial it in and lock it in. And I believe this edge guide too also can convert to a circle jig. So it has a little pivot point, and then you can use these rods to cut perfect circles. So I've used that a number of times on the old one. And yeah, the Bosch RA 1054 is a very high quality edge guide. And I think when it does come to brands, Bosch is among the best. I mean, before getting to Festool and some of those brands, but Bosch and Porter Cable are among the best. I did evaluate the DeWalt one, given that I have a lot of DeWalt tools. But for me, it was all Bosch for my routers. So here we have some accessories. So it's dust port and then centering, or yeah, this is for the circles. So this is a mounting point that you can put onto the board, and then you can cut circles using those rods. So really nice to have overall. And yeah, so let's keep going. And let's move to the router table. So here we have this beautiful router table. So nice cast aluminum top. It's the RA 1181 from Bosch. And let's just pump it up a little bit. So you'll see under here that I do have the fixed base of my router mounted in here permanently. I mean, pretty easy to take it. I think it's 3 screws. But this is a great router table. I had another Bosch router table before this that had a, what are they called? Phenolic tops, but kind of like a wood fiberboard type top. And it was okay. It worked really well. I think it was plastic in the middle and I wanted to go all aluminum. So I do have this one leveled properly. And yeah, so it's got feather boards, mount your router, you can raise it up. I do have a T Allen wrench that can go down to the router for fine adjust, so I can actually adjust it from up here. So this isn't like a Woodpeckers or an Incra or router table along those lines, but for a couple $100 you can get this. And if you're already into the Bosch system, you can get a lot of flexibility out of this. And one of my favorite things about this that I'm going to be doing soon is that this measures basically just under 27 inches wide. And just to show you, let's grab a tape measure. My table saw has a perfect gap here that happens to be, I think it's about a 1/16 of an inch wider than that router table. So that router table is going to mount in here absolutely perfectly. And there are a number of videos on YouTube, and I'll record one as well when I do that. But I can essentially mount that router table perfectly in here. It'll come out to probably a little bit here. And I just have to drill through the aluminum here to mount it perfectly. But that's going to save so much room in my shop. Yeah, I will lose this crappy little cabinet, but to have a router table built into the table saw is going to be super convenient. And the more accessible it is, the more often that I'll use it. Just to show you a couple other things with this. So it's got a really nice fence system that's made out of aluminum. The dust collection is pretty good on these. I haven't had any significant issues with that. And also if we go under here, and hopefully I can see a little bit, but it does actually have a plug on the other side here. So you can actually plug your router into there, and then you just have one cord from the router table, and you can use this switch to turn it on and off. So super handy to be able to connect the router into this, so you don't have to worry too much about the switch from the router. So very, very nice router table. Definitely recommend checking it out. Not just if you're in the Bosch system, it does have a lot of mounting holes for other brands as well. And I was using a Mastercraft Maximum router before, and it was able to mount in here pretty easily. So great router table, definitely check it out. So now you have your bits, you've got your edge guide for your trim router. You also have a plunge base for it. Again, check out the video that I did on this guy. And where do you go now? So for me, and this was a very recent purchase, I think in the fall, for me, it was going to the dovetail jig. So I have hand cut dovetails before. I'm not very good at it. It's something that I would love to improve. But for me, really, I'm not making a lot of boxes. I'm not doing a lot of that type of joinery. So for me, if I can do it with the router, let's do it. So I haven't yet unboxed this. I'm going to do a separate video showing the unboxing of this, because there's a lot of parts in here. This is the super jig, the 4216 super jig. And then I'll go through the setup and provide a detailed review on this and whether I like it or not. So far, I mean, I've looked at the manual and it's a little intimidating, but I'll be checking that out soon. However, this is Porter Cable and I'm using the Bosch router system. So this actually prompted the need for another 2 accessories that I got. Luckily, these are much less expensive, but let's check these out. So here we have the template guide kit, and let's open this. Okay, there we go. Got it open now. So this is the template guide kit, and it has a number of different template guides that can mount into the router. So these essentially, just pull the router over. Now, I've never used these before, but these essentially mount into the bottom of the router, and then they can screw in, and you can put template guides in them. So these are the Bosch template guides, but really what I was after, I think, was this mounting ring. No, this mounting ring. So you need to mount this guy. Let's get him out. So again, I haven't gone through all of this yet, but I need to mount this guy into my router, and then this guy goes into that, and then the Porter cable guide bushings will hopefully mount into that. So this whole kit, I think, was under 20 bucks. So it's nothing super expensive, but it will give me the flexibility to use the Porter cable dovetail jig. Also with this, I needed another accessory, and that's to get the bit perfectly centered underneath. And for that, I got this centering cone. And centering cones are really neat. You basically stick this, I think it's got 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch shaft in there. So you put it in there, you mount that right into your router, and because of the conical structure of this, it allows you to perfectly center like the base or your guide bushings or other things in it. So this was very inexpensive as well. I think this was probably around $10. So not super expensive, but the quantity of accessories really adds up. And not just that, keeping all of the parts organized is something that can be a bit of a mess. So just to go back to the router drawer, that's where we have all of these different accessory bags. We have all these manuals. We have just random screws around that I know are associated with one of my routers. We have this connection that I have no idea where this came from. I don't even know if it's from this router or if it's from another one that I've had. So getting into routers is not just about going out and buying your big 2¼ horsepower and your trim router. It's also about all the accessories that accompany them. So I know this video didn't really go into too much detail on any of these individual products. I'll be definitely doing a review or a how-to on how to mount the Bosch RA 1181 into the rigid table saw. And hopefully that goes pretty well. I've heard that you really just need some step drill bits and some bolts, and it shouldn't be too bad. I'll also be doing some videos on the Porter Cable 4216 Super Jig. And I think that's about it. So thanks for joining me, and until next time, bye-bye.